Rule of Rose is an interesting and legendary title within the gaming sphere. Not so much for the actual game itself, but for the way that the game was treated and handled in the days and weeks leading up to its release. Now, having played the game, it's not the absolute immoral shockfest that it was made out to be just under 20 years ago. It's a dark story, sure, containing themes that will be a trigger for some people, which leads me to the bizarre journey that this game has been on ever since its development and what was scheduled to be its European release back in 2006. The way that gaming was viewed at the time by people in an influential position who didn't really understand gaming was that these people tried to imply that real-world issues such as mental illness and generally reprehensible behaviour taking place was a direct result of people being influenced by the video games that they were playing. The biggest example we saw of this at the time was the rise of Grand Theft Auto. Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto 3 released was a huge success, and politicians of an older nature were up in arms about violence and crime in video games. But let's talk about Rule of Rose. Moral panic is the official term for what happened. Set in 1930, the game follows a protagonist, 19-year-old Jennifer, who gets trapped within a world ruled by young children who call themselves the Red Crayon Aristocracy. Whilst it deals with abuse and bullying, various authorities around Europe decided this children's game featured erotic themes and obscene brutality. The origin of this opinion came about after a journalist for Panorama magazine in Italy, whose name I won't mention, did no research on the game and plagiarized an article praising the game and twisted his own write-up, making out the game featured these awful themes in abundance. One of his quotes was, "Every single frame is dripping with perversion." The Panorama journalist took the Rule of Rose developers' words and the English translation out of context. Whilst the developers were talking about the peculiarity of children's behaviour, the journalist saw it as the devs taking pride in one of the game's themes of a child being buried alive. In one scene, Jennifer is placed into a coffin and is transported somewhere else, but she's not buried alive. Panorama even ran with the front cover title, "Whoever buries the girl alive wins." One scene in particular that this journalist saw as sexual and erotic was this scene here. Two female children rubbing their noses together. Anyway, this furore led to a huge reaction in Europe, in Italy in particular, with parents becoming irate, who in turn demanded the game be banned from stores. The mayor of Rome got involved, as did the EU's Minister for Justice, Franco Frattini, who demanded the game receive an outright ban to teach developers a lesson. Frattini demanded a review into the Video Game Standards Council and a reforming of the PEGI rating system for games. But they, of course, branded Frattini's comments nonsense and made up. They'd even issued the game a PEGI 16 rating before the article by that journalist was even written. Copied. Shining beacons of British tabloid media, the Daily Mail and the Times, ended up writing their own misinformed articles too. The game was eventually released, but the damage had been done, sales were abysmal, and the studio shut down. Anyway, all this eventually led to the game becoming somewhat of a desired item for collectors. Prices are quite high for copies of the game, but that has considerably cooled now after a load of copies of the game were recently found sealed and brand new in an Italian warehouse. But hey, that's it for the real world lore surrounding this game. Let's get into the story. It's March 1930. 19-year-old Jennifer is riding the bus somewhere, and a young boy comes up to her, handing her a book, asking her to read the story. Before she can do so, the bus stops, and the young boy runs off the bus without the book. Asking him to wait, Jennifer gets off the bus, but the boy keeps on running. The bus then departs, leaving Jennifer stranded on the side of the road in the English countryside. Reading the book, the story, called The Little Princess, is about a young girl who had a friend named the Princess of the Red Rose, who was always by her side. The young girl's parents suddenly died and the princess disappeared, and the young girl was sent to an orphanage. The rest of the book is blank. With nowhere else to go, she can't just stay there, so Jennifer continues up the path where the young boy ran. A split in the path can see her check out a nearby barn, and approaching it she can hear the whining of a dog. Entering, however, she finds nothing in there other than a dog's collar, which features the name Brown on it. She then hears the sound of laughing children. Continuing to follow the path, Jennifer spots the boy and comes to a large house which seems familiar to her, an orphanage called the Red Rose Orphanage. Outside, behind the gates, she witnesses children with paper bags on their heads beating a sack with sticks. Slightly creepy. Nonetheless, with the gate locked, Jennifer manages to unlock a side gate using a strange ticket, a boarding pass that she'd found earlier. Going round to the front of the orphanage, she notices drawings depicting a legend known as the stray dog that kidnaps kids, but that also gives them sweets. At the front doors, she sees the sack being dragged inside, and Jennifer heads in. In one of the rooms, the headmaster's room, she finds a diary which mentions that the children in the orphanage have been acting strangely and spreading rumours about the aforementioned stray dog that kidnaps small children. She also spots a large fish tank with a model of the orphanage inside it. Seeing the young boy run upstairs, she goes after him. Following the boy throughout the upper floors, this eventually leads Jennifer to an attic, and she finds an odd door and opens it. The boy sits atop a candlelit structure, and speaking to the boy, he calls her a slowpoke, asks her to read the rest of the story to him. So she does. The story, which was previously incomplete, has now been extended and reads that the little girl's new home, the orphanage, has a club called the Aristocrat Club, who live by something called the Rule of Rose. The little girl found herself alone. An announcement rings out saying they'll now begin the funeral, a funeral for Jennifer's dear friend. Heading down to the inner courtyard, Jennifer finds a shovel and she feels that something dear to her was buried there, so she starts to dig. Inside a coffin, she finds a sack that the children were beating with sticks earlier on. She is approached by the children with bags over their heads, and she has water poured all over her, whilst the children tell Jennifer that she looks filthy. She then hears another announcement which talks about a flight and that they will be taking off shortly. Jennifer is then thrown into the coffin, the lid is shut, and she is then carried off somewhere. She comes to tied up in a room known as the filth room and hears the young boy's voice telling her how she's been bad and deserves to be punished. He tells her that she needs to find a gift every month and take it to the Aristocrat Club, or he will kill her. Pretty harsh. The boy refers to himself as the Prince of the Red Rose and that he rules. He also has an extremely annoying laugh. You're welcome. Jennifer is then cut loose and she is now a member of the Aristocrat Club. Leaving the room, she sees signs pointing her to the Aristocrat Club, and following them she enters a passenger hallway and discovers that the club follow a strict social class system, with herself being the lowest rank titled beggar. She looks out of a window and realises that she's above the clouds on an airship. Up there she approaches a door just like the one in the attic of the orphanage. On the door is a note which says that this month's gift is a butterfly. Exiting, Jennifer sees a green butterfly on the floor of the cargo bay. However, it flies off and a girl named Amanda runs after it. Going after Amanda and the butterfly, Jennifer comes across a Labrador retriever which has been cruelly tied up and hung from the ceiling. She also sees a maid named Martha scrubbing the floors. She looks at Jennifer and calls her a filthy wretch. She spots a sign scrawled on the wall which points her towards the Clover field. There she sees a little girl called Olivia crying, and the green butterfly from earlier on the ground. Going to grab it, Olivia stops Jennifer from doing so and walks off, saying that Jennifer deserves to be gobbled up. Jennifer picks up the butterfly, which is dead, and its wings are tattered. On one of the chairs, she also finds a copper leaf, which looks like it attaches to something. Heading back towards the strange door to make her monthly offering, Jennifer sees something horrifying. It's an imp. Using the sharp prongs of the fork she got from Olivia earlier, Jennifer defeats it. At the door, she offers up the dead butterfly, but as expected, it's not in a good state, so she needs to find another one. On the way out, she finds a key with a bronze leaf attached to it. Leaving that part of the airship, Jennifer is surprised by an odd man. He hands her a book. The book tells the story of the Clover field. There was once an unlucky girl who wanted to be happy, so she went to a clover field. She found a one-leaf clover, but dropped it on the road. She found a two-leaf clover, but that disappeared into the shadows. A three-leaf clover was hidden away by a witch, but she was unable to find a four-leaf clover, and just like that, the man disappears. Heading to the room where the mysterious young boy was earlier on, when Jennifer was tied up, she finds a button and pushing it lowers the scissors. She grabs them and uses them to cut the ropes that have been used to tie the dog up. With the dog rescued, Jennifer uses the collar she found in the shed earlier on and names the dog Brown. Heading into the third passenger corridor, Jennifer sees another disturbing sight. Making her way up to the Clover field, Jennifer finds Martha's hat on the ground. Using the one-leaf key, she gains access to the one-leaf door. Showing the copper leaf to Brown, he uses his keen sense of smell and finds another copper leaf, and this attaches to the one-leaf key to make a two-leaf key. She uses this new key to gain access to the two-leaf door, where Martha had been dragged earlier on. Finding room number 9, in line with the story earlier, the room is shrouded in darkness, and Jennifer finds a dirty washcloth. Someone speaks from the darkness. It's a witch. She calls herself a powerful wretch. She talks of a precious key that she hid in a pure and dirty place. Giving Brown the washcloth, he leads Jennifer to a sheet of cloth, and after he removes it, Jennifer finds the 3-leaf key. Opening the 3-leaf door, she shows Brown the dead green butterfly, and he leads her to a room in which she sees Amanda. Amanda is looking at a butterfly in a display case. Approaching Amanda, she says that she found that butterfly and that she won't give it to her. Amanda walks out of the room and shows off her butterfly, gloating to Jennifer, and then she runs off. Grabbing the now empty display case, she shows it to Brown, and he sniffs out a blue butterfly which flies away. Jennifer then chases it around the airship, eventually getting her prize. She now has a suitable offering for the Aristocrat Club. However, she has to run for the door to the Aristocrat Club as she is confronted by imps. Lots of imps who are intent on doing her harm. Arriving back at the door, Jennifer sees Amanda presenting her gift, and she is allowed into the room behind the door. Jennifer approaches and gives her gift, and the gift is accepted as she enters the room, being booted inside.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Aristocrat Club. Thank you all for gathering here today. You're a disgrace. Nothing worse than nothing. Your gift is worth nothing. Amanda. There. Amanda! 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 Amanda!
Coming to, Jennifer finds herself in front of the mysterious young boy who sits on top of a structure. The boy says that Jennifer hasn't gotten her memory back yet. He says that once she remembers what she did, then this little game will be over. Having passed out once again, Jennifer and Brown find themselves in the filth room again, and she finds a letter on the ground. It's from Amanda, and she says that she's sorry about what she did to her, and while she reads it, Amanda peeks round the door. In the letter, she asks Jennifer to meet her where you can see the sky. Seeing two boys playing, Jennifer tries to speak to them, but they flat out ignore her. In another of the cargo holds, Jennifer sees Olivia there sat in front of a chalkboard. She says that Mr. Hoffman is really scary when he's mad. Pushing further through the airship, Jennifer heads up to the top of the airship and sees Amanda there, who gives Jennifer a tearful apology for what she did involving the rat, saying that she was scared. She asks if they are still friends before returning back inside the airship. Jennifer has a note thrown at her, and it says for Amanda and Jennifer to report to the gift box at once. Going to the door of the Aristocrat Club, Jennifer sees that this month's gift is to find and gift a girl called Wendy's missing rabbit Peter. Entering the library, Jennifer speaks with a young girl who says that both Jennifer and Amanda are to find Sir Peter immediately. Amanda is in the library acting very strangely, but she says that Sir Peter must be around there somewhere. In the filth room, Jennifer is scared by the strange man. He refers to Jennifer as Joshua and says that he's written a new story for her before walking off. In the filth room, Jennifer finds a bag of Sir Peter's droppings, and Sir Peter runs out of the room. Showing the bag of droppings to Brown, Brown sniffs out the scent of the lost rabbit. A chase takes place all over the airship, with the rabbit leading them not only to dangerous situations, but eventually to a group of imps trying to clean up and whacking a bloodied sack with their brooms. They see Jennifer and Brown and then they run away. As a result, the orphanage's headmaster, a mangled Mr. Hoffman, enters the cargo hold and he attacks Jennifer, accusing her of making a mess, again leading to a fight between the two, and Jennifer ends up defeating Hoffman. The imps then drag Hoffman's bloodied body away. Picking up the warm sack, Jennifer takes it to the gift box. Amanda is there, begging for Jennifer to give Sir Peter to her so that she can deliver him for them. Sir Peter runs out of the bag and through the door to the Aristocrat Club, with Amanda running after him. Going through the door and finding herself in a forest, the aristocrats stand round a fire singing about Stray Dog. Amanda surprises Jennifer and tells her that the lower classes like them aren't allowed to go up close. Standing before the aristocrats thanks to her work in finding and bringing back Sir Peter, Jennifer is promoted to Amanda's position in the club, and Amanda is demoted to Jennifer's position. As with what happened previously, Jennifer now has to put the rat in Amanda's face, and Amanda passes out. When Jennifer sees that the rat on the stick is dead and covered in maggots, she also passes out. Coming to a bit later, Jennifer sees the mysterious young boy there, sat on top of the structure. He tells her that she's been bad again. 3 books sit in front of him, and he says that Jennifer needs to read all 3 books. The book titled The Bird tells the story of a girl that found a big box which contained the bird of happiness. The girl hoped that the bird would take her to Foreverland. Each box inside the big box was smaller than the last one. She eventually found the bird in a very small, cramped box, but the bird was dead, having met a bloody end. Jennifer wakes up later in a room with Eleanor, who is sitting beside an empty bird cage, indicating that her bird is missing. Leaving the room, Jennifer spots and overhears Diana and Meg talking about Eleanor and how they need to push her a little harder. As expected, the monthly gift for that month is the bird of happiness. Finding a red feather on the ground, Jennifer gives it to Brown, and he leads her to a path of red feathers. And these lead to the female toilet, and one toilet stall in particular features a drawing of a bloodied bird. Jennifer hides in the stall as she hears Diana and Meg enter the bathroom. They continue to talk about Eleanor, and they aren't saying very nice things. They leave the bathroom, but as Jennifer leaves, Diana and Meg find out that she was listening in on their conversation. Meg then tells her that the bird of happiness is somewhere nearby, but that it will die very soon if it's not found. They then continue to say mean things in regard to Eleanor, and imagine what she would be like if she found out that her bird was dead. Continuing to follow the red feathers, Jennifer comes to a small room, and a large box sits in the middle of it. Finding a sketch of the land of the birds, the sketch has a number on it, 834. Putting this into the lock on the box, it opens. Inside is another box. Jennifer needs to find the code. Finding various clues for more and more boxes, with the boxes getting smaller and smaller each time, she eventually reaches the final box. Inside, she finds the dead bird, just as the story foretold. Eleanor walks into the room and takes the dead bird, placing it inside the birdcage. Seemingly back at the orphanage again, she then donates it to the Aristocrat Club, walking inside with Diana and Meg following her, slightly disappointed that they didn't get the hysterical reaction from Eleanor that they were hoping for. The door closes behind them and Jennifer wakes up on the airship in the room she started in. She remembers something after finding the final page of the book, with the moral of the story being that everlasting happiness is a joke. She writes something on a chalkboard, a promise to a dear friend, and then she passes out again and wakes up in front of the structure with 2 books left to read. The mysterious young boy asks her if she's remembered yet, and she picks up another book. The book titled Mermaid Princess tells the story of a mermaid that fell in love with a human prince. However, he did not love her back. As she grew very old, she was all alone. The poor princess of the Sea Kingdom. Coming to, Jennifer finds herself in a room with Diana, who is looking at a fish tank. She has noticed that Mr. Hoffman's fish is gone. After Diana leaves the room to go off in search of the missing fish, Jennifer leaves too and spots Olivia crying by the gift box. Examining the poster on the door, it reads that the monthly gift is actually an unmarried mermaid. In one of the hallways, Jennifer hears Meg and Eleanor talking. They talk about Diana being upset because of something they did. They say that there's no such thing as mermaids. They ask Jennifer if she believes in mermaids, and they tell her that Diana might end up finding it before her. They then leave, and in their place, a fish scale. Giving it to Brown, Jennifer is led through the airship again. She eventually sees both Hoffman and another girl called Clara walking off somewhere. Brown leads Jennifer to the discovery of a fish head, and she spots Diana searching for the fish too. Finally, Jennifer comes to a room where she sees Hoffman sitting on a bed. The door slams shut, but entering the room properly, Jennifer sees something horrific. It's the Mermaid Princess. Jennifer has to fight the grotesque mermaid. Suspended from the ceiling, the mermaid would vomit, and this vomit would harm Jennifer. Avoiding these hazards, Jennifer ultimately comes out on top and defeats the mermaid. In her place, a doll drops from the ceiling, and picking it up, Jennifer has this month's offering. Behind her, she realizes that she's back in the room she started in, and here's Hoffman having a go at Diana for the mess. Hoffman starts to touch Diana rather inappropriately, telling her that no one will want her if she acts like this. He leaves, and Diana grabs the doll off Jennifer, places it inside the fish tank, and then she pushes a dirty rag from Hoffman's fish tank in her face. A little later, Jennifer wakes up having passed out again, and taking the mermaid doll out of the fish tank, she sees a slip of paper inside it. It's the missing page from the story. It says that the moral of the story is that I am yours even in death. Again, Jennifer then writes something else on a chalkboard. She then, once again, wakes up in front of the structure with one last book to read. Picking up the final book, it's titled The Goat Sisters. It's about two sisters. The little sister wrote a letter, the big sister ate the letter. The little sister then studied her notes, and the big sister tore them up. The little sister wanted to read her big sister the letter, so she fetched it from her sister's stomach. But because big sister was dead, there was no one to read the letter to. Waking up in a different room again, Jennifer speaks with Meg, who is sat on a chair crying. She says that she's missing something and implies that the contents of the letter are very sensitive to her, and she walks off. Jennifer finds Meg's pencil on the chair, which she'd left behind. Showing it to Brown, he leads Jennifer to a piece of paper on the ground. It's the red crayon pledge for those wanting to join the Aristocrat Club, and it speaks of punishing the unfaithful. Spotting Meg continuing to search for the letter, Brown also leads her to a stray dog list, which contains notes on the stray dog described by the Princess of the Red Rose. It talks of how the stray dog kidnaps children who don't do their chores. Finally, Brown leads Jennifer to a freezer, and inside a snowman, Jennifer discovers a letter. It's a love letter written by Meg to Diana. She has to fight her way out of the freezer, having been attacked by a goat mask wearing imp. Later on, she finds a book, a manual on aristocracy. She finds designs for certain torture devices inside it designed by Meg. One in particular mentions something called the onion bag, although specific information on it is missing. Spotting Diana in conversation with Eleanor, it seems that the letter Jennifer previously found isn't the letter Meg is looking for. She says that she was the one who ripped a certain letter in half because she was sick of Meg following her around all the time. Speaking to Diana, she tasks Jennifer with finding the other half of another letter. Jennifer lets Brown smell the letter she found, and this leads them to the luggage room. There she meets the Goat Sisters and has to defeat them. After they're dead, Jennifer checks out the grandfather clock in the room and finds the body of a goat, and inside the goat is the other half of the letter. Then, as expected, Meg comes in with Diana and Eleanor and accuses Jennifer of having torn the letter up herself. And of course, Diana says nothing, with Meg weeping and finding comfort with Diana, saying that Jennifer should be put into the onion bag. So, Jennifer is bundled into a large bag which is filled with insects, leading to Jennifer passing out again. Waking up, Jennifer then finds herself back in the room that she started in. Finding the final page of the story underneath the goat doll, it reads that even true love is quickly shredded by conflict. Jennifer then writes something else on a chalkboard, and finally she wakes up in the room where the young boy was, only to find him gone now all the stories have been read. As she leaves the room, she is grabbed by something or someone. With the strange, large man she saw on the airship standing over her, Jennifer wakes up in a rose garden, but she looks around and finds no sign of Brown. Leaving the rose garden, she spots the man, and following him, Jennifer comes to a house. Entering the house, she peeks through the doors in the house and sees the man seemingly distraught and upset about something. In the basement, Jennifer sees the man with a gun to his head, but whatever he was planning to do, he stops and welcomes Jennifer home, saying it's almost bedtime. He calls her Joshua and leaves the room, locking her in. Jennifer searches the room and finds a bunch of letters underneath the mattress, addressed to Joshua from a girl named Wendy. The letters refer to Joshua as a prince and Wendy as a princess. She talks of that awful thing of his, referring to the gun. She talks about leaving everything to her, checking a wardrobe, a teddy bear falls off of it, and picking it up, a small blonde girl shows up at the window. Presumed to be Wendy, she says to stay there and she'll help Jennifer out. Waiting, the girl is snuck through the house and down into the basement to unlock the door for Jennifer. In the house, the girl says they should run away before the man comes back. Going into the study first though, they take Gregory's gun and escape. In the rose garden, the two meet and Wendy asks to trade her brooch for the teddy bear that Jennifer found, so they swap. Wendy names the teddy bear Joshua. Jennifer then wakes up in the aristocrat room in the orphanage again, with a hand on hers. It's the mysterious young boy who runs off telling her that she should go back and hang around with Amanda where she belongs. Getting up and leaving the room, Jennifer, now back on the airship, sees that the monthly gift is now Joshua the bear, which has gone missing and is precious to the princess, and the reward for finding the bear is a red crayon. Jennifer spots the strange man leaving a storybook outside of Amanda's room in the cargo hold, saying he's sure Joshua will like the story he wrote for him. Picking it up, it's called Rag Princess. It's about a young girl who sewed rags day in, day out, and the stench of those rags would seep into her clothing. In the meantime, her stepsisters would wear beautiful dresses and would go to the ball. The girl stayed home and her jealousy grew. A fairy godmother came and cast a spell on her, telling her to sew an ash grey dress and she too can go to the ball. Sewing together the stinky rags, she fashioned a dress and became the Rag Princess. However, she stunk out the entire town. She made another girl wear the dress, and this girl and the Rag Princess became friends. After reading the book, Jennifer enters the room and speaks with Amanda, doesn't want to see Jennifer, and she's been furiously working away at the sewing machine. Leaving, Amanda speaks to Jennifer and asks if she suspects her of stealing Joshua the bear, and instead Amanda accuses Wendy of stealing the bear, saying that she's sick in bed. Going to the sick room, Jennifer discovers Wendy out of her bed lying on the floor, and she tells Jennifer that the aristocrats came to her and accused her of stealing the bear. Jennifer helps Wendy back into bed and goes to Amanda's room. Inside a box, she discovers part of the bear's tail. She shows it to Brown, whose nose gets to work. Eventually, she's able to track down Amanda. She spots her going up in an elevator, but can't go after her as the power goes out. Trekking all the way across the airship again, Jennifer retrieves a lever for the generator after a boy called Xavier stole it, and she manages to get the power back on. Returning to the elevator, Jennifer rides it to the top and finds herself somewhere completely different. Jennifer sees Amanda furiously beating something with a stick. She gives Joshua the bear to Jennifer and turns around, and Jennifer then realizes that Amanda is beating a doll that resembles her. She then passes out. Whilst unconscious, the young boy steals Joshua the bear from her. Realizing she's been mugged off, Jennifer gets into an elevator and seeing the young boy, she runs after him. Catching up to him, he springs a trap, as Jennifer and Brown are surrounded by a load of imps. This repeatedly happens, but eventually, the imps are all defeated. Brown leads her back to the door of the aristocrat club, where she finds the bear on the ground. Jennifer places the bear into the gift box on the door as that month's gift offering, and she enters the room. She finds herself in front of the aristocrats, and Amanda tells Diana that Jennifer was the one who stole the bear in the first place. Meg reads from the aristocrat book and says that a word from the princess is forthcoming. Meg says that Jennifer has brought a wonderful gift to the club and will receive her prize. The aristocrats leave the room and then imps appear, chanting about red crayons. They tie Jennifer up and, you guessed it, she faints again. This time, Jennifer wakes up in the Red Rose orphanage. Mr. Hoffman's voice echoes over the tannoy and is talking about the orphans' chores and what they need to do before bedtime. She's tied up and is covered in crayon. It seems the imps stuffed a load of red crayons into her mouth and she spits them all out. Calling Brown, he helps her get free of her restraints and she gets up. She picks up a red crayon from the ground, the mark of an aristocrat. Exiting her room, Jennifer heads into the hallway and down the stairs. She spots Hoffman guiding the children as they complete their cleaning responsibilities. He then heads into one of the rooms, but not before accusing Jennifer of playing hooky, and he tells her to go to his office later on. Going there, Hoffman calls Jennifer a dirty wretch and asks her why she's always trying to get out of doing work. As she walks around the orphanage, Jennifer has many crumpled pieces of paper thrown at her, which read words such as "apologise by dying," "liar," and "poor Mr. Joshua." In one room, the sick bay, she spots Clara. Trying to talk to her, Clara says nothing, and Creepo Hoffman walks into the room and beckons Clara to go somewhere with him. Jennifer peeks through the door, and she sees that Hoffman's being all kinds of disgusting as he's making Clara clean the floor for his enjoyment. She receives a note which tells her to go to the hallway, and when she does, she finds another note. Picking it up, Hoffman tells the children it's time for bed. The early evening then turns to night, and Jennifer reads the note she picked up. To her utter shock, it says that this month's gift is Filthy Jennifer. Jennifer spots Wendy in the courtyard, and she has to defeat a load of imps in order to get through the door. After doing so, with the imps inside scratching at the windows, Jennifer learns from Wendy that a meeting is about to take place with the aristocrats. The book lies atop a coffin, and picking it up and reading it is titled The Funeral. It's about a girl who once upon a time found a hole in the ground. The little people came out and told her the news that today was the day of her funeral, and that if she doesn't like it, then she must sacrifice her friend. The question is then asked, who wants to be buried alive? The girl, forced into a horrible position, buried her best friend. Closing the book, all of a sudden the imps have disappeared, as have Wendy and Brown. In the orphanage, Jennifer hears the whimpering of Brown, her faithful friend. Thinking that she spots him lying dead on the ground, it's revealed to not be him, much to her relief. However, that relief is to be short-lived. She heads into the Aristocrat Club. A note on the door reveals that the monthly gift this time round was actually Filthy Brown. She walks inside and sees imps having tied up Brown, and they drag him to the aristocrat throne, sweeping up after him. To her horror, Jennifer sees her friend lying there dead, except, again, it's not Brown. What's going on with Jennifer? Falling to the ground, the aristocrats appear before her. The Princess of the Red Rose is there. To her surprise, the Princess of the Red Rose and the leader of the aristocrats is revealed to be Wendy. Amanda comes over and whispers to Jennifer that her friend is in the bag. Wendy smiles, seeming to be pleased with herself. Jennifer is furious and stands to her feet, now a much younger version of herself. But let's pause. What exactly is going on? Let's break from the plot here and look at Jennifer's backstory. Alright, so everything in this game is pretty confusing. However, it's much clearer when you realise that everything we see in this game are just distorted representation of Jennifer's own memories. But why distorted, and why did Jennifer forget so much? Before we get into the game's finale, let's look at Jennifer's life up to this point. A lot of what we will cover now pretty much makes up for the final chapter of the game titled Once Upon a Time, which took place in January 1930. Jennifer grew up with wealthy parents, and they would one day take an airship ride from Cardington, Bedfordshire, in England to India. But one day, after a storm, the airship crashed, and young Jennifer was the sole survivor. She was found and taken in by a poor pea farmer named Gregory. All she had with her was her beloved teddy bear. Gregory has a son called Joshua, but it's likely that Joshua had died at some point, with Gregory having buried him in the garden. In Gregory's diary, we learn that Joshua had become very ill, to the point that he was bedridden. After Joshua's death, Gregory was depressed and was suicidal, and this also led him to become an alcoholic. He boarded up Joshua's old bedroom in an attempt to get over his death, but understandably, he couldn't get over it. Gregory would dress Jennifer up as a boy and call her Joshua, locking her in the basement and basically imprisoning her there at his home. He would make up stories and would give these books to her. No one would have been looking for Jennifer, as she was considered killed in the airship crash. Also, judging from a newspaper article from 1 year prior, it seems that this isn't the first time that Gregory had kidnapped a child to try and replace his son. Being forced to stay there at Gregory's house, Jennifer was lonely. That was until Wendy, who of course lived at the Red Rose orphanage nearby, saw Jennifer through the window. Wendy thought that Jennifer was a boy and called her a prince, and the two exchanged letters. Jennifer would tell Wendy that she was in fact a girl, but Wendy would insist that she be a princess and Jennifer would continue to be the prince. One day, Wendy helped Jennifer escape. She stole Gregory's gun and she and Jennifer exchanged gifts. Wendy gave her her red rose brooch, and in exchange, Jennifer gave Wendy her teddy bear. They then made a pact. Everlasting, true love, I am yours. Jennifer would then join Wendy and would live at the Red Rose orphanage, and they became best friends. Jennifer then joined the Red Crayon Aristocrat Club and would join in their scheming and their games. But she was conflicted due to some of the cruelty shown by some of the other aristocrats. Sometime later, Jennifer was walking nearby the orphanage and heard the whining of a dog. Inside a shed, she found a puppy, naming him Brown and placing a collar on him. Jennifer showed her new puppy to Wendy, but a jealousy, a bitterness, and a deep resentment would grow in Wendy, and she grew to hate Brown for taking the majority of Jennifer's attention. Wendy would turn on Jennifer and would spread lies about her among the aristocrats, leading to them turning on her too and bullying her via notes that they would scribble on and throw at her, even pushing her down the stairs. They even had a life-size doll of Jennifer in the attic and would regularly beat it. One day though, the headmaster, Mr. Hoffman, just left the orphanage, leaving Martha and Clara to take care of the children. He mentions that wretched child turning up, having caused all kinds of trouble. Here I think he's referring to Wendy, of course, and not Jennifer. As for Hoffman, well, he is exactly as we see him, a horrible man. He was constantly physically and mentally abusing the children, even so far as to sexually abuse Clara on multiple occasions. And this was seen through the unmarried Mermaid Princess story, which was the monstrous form of Clara born out of her trauma at the hands of Hoffman. Anyway, the bullying was all a ploy by Wendy to try and get Jennifer to give in and abandon Brown, but she refused to do so. Then, the unthinkable happened. As we saw, Wendy, jealous and full of rage, ordered Brown to be killed by the aristocrats, making Brown that month's gift. So Brown was killed and stuffed into a sack. Wendy taunted Jennifer, telling her to look in the sack, and Jennifer, rightly furious, hit Wendy repeatedly in front of the other children, causing Wendy to cry, and she ran off humiliated. Jennifer shouted at them, telling them she hates them all, but this is when things get even more messed up. We previously learned of Gregory and his son Joshua. Wendy, after being embarrassed and demoted, decided to dress up like Joshua and made poor Gregory, in his vulnerable state, believe that Joshua was alive and well, and she manipulated him into believing that he was a dog. He then became a stray dog, and Wendy would then spread rumours about Stray Dog to the children at the orphanage, hence the drawings about Stray Dog on the walls, and Hoffman even wrote about these odd rumours in his journal. Wendy made Gregory believe that the children at the orphanage hurt Wendy, who of course he believed was Joshua, so Stray Dog would go to the orphanage. But let's pick up from where we left off earlier. After the drama of what happened in the attic, Jennifer wakes up in her room in the orphanage in December of 1930. Hearing some of the children laughing, Jennifer finds the source of the laughter is Amanda and a girl called Susan. They ask her to follow them. She is pushed into a room with the aristocrats and then is promoted to Princess of the Red Rose in Wendy's place. The aristocrats see Wendy outside. Being that she's now the target of their bullying, they go outside to torment her. But Jennifer does not join them. Jennifer then immediately hears screaming coming from outside, and heading to the front door, it opens, and Wendy, dressed as Joshua and revealed to be the mysterious young boy, has brought Stray Dog, Gregory, to the orphanage. He has killed all of the children as, in his head, they hurt his son. Wendy, as Joshua, tells Stray Dog to attack Jennifer, so Jennifer ends up having to defeat him. He eventually falls. Outside, Wendy reveals that it was her that brought Stray Dog there to get revenge on everyone at the orphanage. Wendy, of course, still has Gregory's gun. She gives it to Jennifer. Gregory, or Stray Dog, is alive and ends up killing Wendy. Now, forced to fight Stray Dog again, Jennifer has two options. She can kill Gregory in combat, and this ends up with her not being able to move past what she went through in her younger years. And an endgame message tells us that Jennifer is all alone again, and Wendy's laugh is heard with a message popping up, mocking Jennifer. However, instead of defeating Gregory, Jennifer can give the gun to him. He says sorry to Joshua and turns the gun on himself. After this, Jennifer runs towards a bright light and she's taken away, having come to terms with what happened to her after the airship crash which killed her parents and her time there at the orphanage. This acceptance is seen through Jennifer walking through the orphanage as a child. She eventually goes to the shed where she found Brown and vows to preserve and protect his memory until the day she dies, stating, "Everlasting, true love, I am yours." And the game then ends. So finally, there were plenty of clues throughout the game which hinted at the fact that everything was a distorted representation of Jennifer's own memories. She repressed these memories due to the trauma inflicted upon her. One day, whilst Jennifer was sat on a bench in the park, she had fallen asleep, or had passed out, classic Jennifer, and she wakes and sees a Labrador retriever that resembled Brown. This triggered something in her memory and she started to get flashbacks. An airship, an orphanage, the red crayon aristocracy, burials, a strange large man, hence why she went on this journey of trying to find out what these memories meant as a now 19-year-old woman. She was either on the park bench reliving those memories, or she fell asleep on the bus from the start and relived those memories there instead. A lot of the things that she saw on the airship would bleed through from her time in the Red Rose orphanage. These were things such as the bird in the toilet on the airship being a drawing of a bird that Jennifer had seen in the toilet stall in the orphanage. There's her memory of Amanda sewing on the airship, which comes from Jennifer's memories of her sewing rags in her room, hence her being referred to as the Rag Princess. More examples of the two boys play fighting and ignoring Jennifer. They did this on both the airship and in the orphanage. And the imps come from dolls in the basement that scared Jennifer as a small child. The Mermaid Princess was the unmarried princess and was the monster form of Clara, who it's implied was being sexually abused by Hoffman whilst at the orphanage. Again, bleed through of these memories and the horror of them left a lasting mark on Jennifer. The scenarios or stories that Jennifer was experiencing were the stories that Gregory had made up and had given to her whilst she was being held at his house. The stories were merged together with her own memories years later, creating a messed up, distorted mindscape of sorts. Another clue is in the dates. When Jennifer wakes up in the rose garden during the Gingerbread House chapter and sees that Brown isn't there, this is technically because these memories are from before she found Brown as a puppy and before she lived at the orphanage. The Rag Princess story was a representation of Amanda's hatred towards Jennifer. Amanda initially liked her for having taken her position of lowest title of the lower class, but after Amanda was demoted and Jennifer promoted, her hatred for Jennifer gradually grew. We see this mental instability in Amanda throughout her diary, in which she wishes all the orphans to die horrible deaths, and she is seen dragging Jennifer's body away. And in the book, the girl who wore the grey dress is of course Jennifer, who wears a grey dress during the game. We also see Amanda beating a doll which resembles Jennifer during the game, and this doll is one that Jennifer saw in the orphanage too. Again, these are all distorted and muddied memories that belong to Jennifer. And finally, the airship was just a leftover memory of the airship she was on that crashed and killed her parents. And that is pretty much it for this video on the Rule of Rose story. You see, not that controversial at all. This game was a blast to play through. From the story to the game's score, it was an enjoyable experience. When it came to the combat though, especially the mermaid fight, so grim, so clunky. But this is actually something that developers ended up apologising for. To close this video out, I've also been on a bit of a retro and rare game hunt lately, and I've managed to get Project 01 to 3, also known in other parts of the world as Fatal Frame, so there'll be content coming on those titles very soon. I'm trying to get my hands on a copy of Quan 2, but that's a bit harder to find for a good price. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already, and leave a comment down below, but for now, take care, and I will see you in the next one.